Hey everybody, and welcome to the third episode of the JKD Blueprint. I'm Big Sean Madigan. I want to thank you so much for joining the podcast and joining us on this video blog, whatever we're going to call it. I'm not sure what I'm calling it yet. But for the folks that know me for a long time, eventually I'll figure it out. You know, you guys know. I'm really excited about tonight. Mike Gittleson's on the podcast, and he doesn't know me from a hole in the wall, but I know him. And I actually have a little quick funny story about that I'm going to tell you in a minute. But, you know, I'm very excited about tonight because if you follow Mike's page on Facebook, you'll see he puts up fantastic videos. And I always respected that because guys that are putting up videos of what they're doing are confident in what they're doing. And it's clear from the videos that Mike's a great coach. And I think he's training his grandson also. I saw a video of that. I think it was awesome.
Yep.
So Mike, welcome to the show.
All right. Thanks for having me on. It's great. And thanks for all those kind words. That's great too.
Well, you know, it's funny, Mike, which I have like a confession for you. When I was originally conceived the idea of this show, I threw down a list of people I want to have on the show. And then I reached out to some friends of mine of different lineages and said, like, listen, this is the concept of the show: coaching, fighting, you know, distance, timing, rhythm, things to that effect. Who would you suggest I have on the show? So a couple of my friends came back with your name, Mike Gittleson. So your name is the only name on my list, that's on my list twice. And the reason it's on my list twice, because I'm such an idiot, is that I had you listed on my list as JKD Colorado. I've been following you on Facebook for so long. I had no idea your name. I just had like my list is like, you know, Kirby Barker, Mark Stewart, and then it says JKD Colorado, and then down like a few spots down it says Mike Gittleson.
That's funny. Honestly, I had no idea people were watching. You know, I get some likes here and there, but I don't know. I mean, it's more of a promotional thing to keep people knowing that I'm out there and all that. But I'm honored that people, you know.
Well, I can tell you, I watch. I'm not very vocal on Facebook in that I don't like. I kind of feel like Facebook tends to get into a lot of arguments with people, and in fact, you know, today I upset somebody on Facebook, and I really just meant it innocently, and someone like got nuts on me, and it just got really bad. So I try and stay away from that as much as I possibly can. But I do watch people's videos when they post videos because I'm interested to see how other people are doing, you know, and what they're doing is really, and you've proven yourself as a guy who people should be paying attention to. At least from what I see in your videos, you've proven you're a guy. Hey, people should watch this dude because he knows coaching and he knows what he's doing. And
Thank you.
Oh, it's the truth. It's the truth. So how'd you get involved in the martial arts, man?
Well, I started when I was pretty young. You know, I was always a small kid. I was never a big guy. So since I was small, I kind of flocked to the martial arts. I thought, you know, maybe I can go learn to defend myself. I was kind of shy. So I got involved in jiu-jitsu when I was 10. Probably, and I studied jiu-jitsu and Wing Chun together for about 10 or 12 years.
Oh, wow.
And I loved it. I mean, I know I learned a lot about myself in that process. You know, I started off in the martial arts there, and I loved it so much that I was there all the time. You know, summertime would hit, no school. That's where I was all summer, every day of the summer. I was at the school, I was training, I was practicing, trying to get better. During that time, I got into, you know, tournaments and sparring in tournaments, doing kata type tournaments and all that kind of stuff too. And that really kind of boosted my ego, I guess, but boosted my morale, my self-esteem. And it really drove me to stick to it. And I loved it.
That's wonderful.
And then, you know, in the jiu-jitsu, I'd say, you know, probably of that experience, I'm going to go off on a tangent. I do that a lot, but
that's all right. We got all night. It was good.
Jiu-jitsu is one of those things that really taught me a lot of really good life skills. And life skills, not just, I'm not talking about life skills like math, life skills. I'm talking about balance, and that's something that's crucial, that ties into everything. I found later in life that I was pretty good at skating. I was pretty good at skateboarding. I was pretty good at, and it's all because of jiu-jitsu, because like when I started really young. And ironically, as my martial arts career went on, wow, that tied into everything, because it was a huge part of the thing. Then, I continued to practice jiu-jitsu and Wing Chun for a long time. And then I moved to California. My ex-wife and I decided we were going to move to California and strike it rich and become famous or whatever.
There you go.
Didn't happen. When I moved to California, I quit doing martial arts for a little while, but for probably a couple of years. And I really missed it. I really needed it again. I needed it back in my life. I couldn't really do without it. So I was at a gas station, and I saw a poster for Jeet Kune Do, somebody that was teaching Jeet Kune Do. I'm going, cool. I think I kind of know what that is. I knew who Bruce Lee was. I think I kind of was. I'm going to go check that out. So I went and practiced with a guy in his garage that was teaching Jeet Kune Do, and he was Gary Dill lineage, so different than what I do now. And later on, I practiced with him for a couple of years and liked it. I mean, I liked it. It was very similar to the Wing Chun that I had done.
Right.
So I fit into it really quick.
Right. Sure.
And then I was lucky enough. We saw Ted Wong was doing a seminar in a nearby city, and we decided we were going to attend that. And I was just in awe. I was watching him move, and I was hot. He did a class, and that seminar was pretty much all on footwork. I mean, we had very little punching and kicking. It was pretty much all footwork. And I saw the way he moved, how smooth, how fast, how agile, and the balance. It was just awesome. And at the end of the seminar, I asked him, I said, I love what you're doing. Are you accepting any students? And he said, yeah, here's my phone number.
Wow, that's amazing.
And that was it. And I trained with him in California for probably about, 11 years, something like that, when I lived in California. And at that time in my life, he encouraged me to open a martial arts school. And prior to meeting him and training with him making me open a martial arts school, he didn't make me, but
yeah, I got you.
I was a district manager for Taco Bell. And I was tired of it, fast food restaurants and that kind of stuff. And I had 9 restaurants under me, and it was not a fun job, and I did it for a long time. But when he decided, he said, hey, why don't you open a school? And I said, all right, so I did. So I quit my job.
Wow.
And, I was in my, in my late 20s and young and stupid.
Sure.
And,
I can just picture you telling your parents, what do you mean you're quitting your job and opening up a karate school?
Exactly. But I did, and I opened it with a partner, and he and I, parted ways after about a year, but I ran that school out there for about 5 or 6 years. And decently, not successful. I made a living, but I ended up having to get another job to supplement things. But during that time, I didn't have a lot of money because I had the school, and I was kind of scraping. Things worked out. Mr. Wong knew that I didn't have a lot of money, although he never asked me for money. I think I paid for him for the first class. I paid him $35.
Right.
And then I asked him, how much do you want? He said, well, I charge $35 an hour. And I said, okay, well, cool, okay. And then after that, he said, but if you're serious, I'm not going to charge you. And I said, I got to pay you something. So I mowed his lawn.
Nice.
And so I mowed his lawn and trained for lessons for 10, 11 years. And it was cool. I mean,
that's awesome. It
was a good experience, good memory.
Yeah, it's funny. I tell people, because I learned Jeet Kune Do under Steve Golden, and I guess that's just another similarity, like in that people ask me how much did I pay Steve Golden? Well, when I hosted him for a seminar, I paid him a seminar fee when I brought him in. But for lessons, for my private lessons, I never paid him a nickel. It's just, you know, he just did it out of love, you know. It's amazing.
Well, as an instructor, you know, and me, you know, later on, me being an instructor, it's the same. If I find somebody that's really wanting to do it, that really wants to train,
sure,
money isn't an issue. You know, as an instructor, you want to find somebody that you can mold and help and in any way. I mean, and it's not so much an ego thing as an instructor. You're not feeling like I'm going to make this guy, you know, you want to help. And that's part of being a good instructor. And to have a student that's really interested in what you have to say or what you're teaching them that's worth the effort right there. It's worth much more than the money they'd be giving you.
Right.
So
that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah, you know, I mean, I've never trained with Ted Wong. Of course, I've always heard amazing things about him, and it kills me that I never got a chance to meet the man.
Oh, you never met him? You never met him? Okay.
I never met him. I trained with Dan Inosanto and Jerry Petit, and of course I had my teacher Steve Golden, and I met Mike Stone, and Pat Strong came to my house for dinner, and we did like a one-day thing. But you know, it wouldn't be fair to his students to say I trained with him. Right. But no, but I never met Ted Wong, no, and but you know, obviously he was a brilliant man. You mentioned balance, and I would love to start there because I think so much of what I do is dependent on balance and the manipulation of balance and movement. You know, just the idea of using the body to move the legs and this offsetting balance to generate movement. I wanted to know if you could talk a little bit about balance and how it affects in your fighting stance and in your footwork. You know, any kind of manipulation of balance or the recovery of balance, anything you want to share with the folks in regards to balance and in movement.
Okay.
Which I know could be a whole podcast in itself.
Oh yeah, that's a huge subject. And ironically, you know, I just had a speech with my class talking about, you know, I go into these little tangents on my own where I'm training on my own and I'm thinking about the meaning of things, you know, I guess the meaning of life type things. And that as I'm training, as I'm practicing and I'm working on things, I start realizing, you know, like straight, for instance, you know, you want your punches nice and straight. And then I've realized over the years that straight is not enough. You want straighter. And even straighter than that is better than straight. And, you know, I mean, and there's various degrees of straight. And that's a realization you only really can come to when you trained a lot and you can explain it to somebody that's trained a lot. I mean, they can't get it unless they've felt that.
Right.
Anyways, but balance is my subject lately, personally, my personal training. You know, and obviously balance has been a big thing throughout. But now recently I've just made these epiphanies as I'm training. And, you know, balance, to me, when I define balance, when I talk to people about balance, there are three types of balance. And in those three types of balance, you've got balance and stillness. And that's usually what people think of when they're thinking of balance. They're thinking of, you know, I can stand on one leg forever, or I can stand in my stance and not move, not waver for, you know, for a long time. That's balance and stillness. And it comes into play. Balance and stillness is important. You know, there's sometimes you need to be rooted. There's sometimes you need to be stationary. There's sometimes somebody is putting force against you. You need to be able to hold your ground. So that's where balance and stillness comes in. Then you got balance and motion. And balance and motion is where there are so many different things to talk about. But balance and motion is the balance of your movement, your punches, your kicks, whatever it happens to be, are balanced. And there's a fine line, and there's this little game you play with balance, with balance and motion. I'm going to tip this down a little bit. There's this little game you play with balance and motion. You're right on the edge of being off balance and knowing where that is. Occasionally you push yourself off that edge, pull yourself back, center yourself again, et cetera, as you're moving. And that's creating momentum, using momentum, and it's body weight transfer. And there's minor movements within every movement, and it's all about balance. So that's balance in motion. And then you got balance in emotion, and balance in emotion is something that everybody needs, whether you're fighting, whether you're working, whether you're riding a bus, whatever it happens to be. You don't freak out when somebody sits down next to you. You're not nervous and hiding within yourself. But it comes in this martial arts aspect, or the martial arts application of it is you're sparring, all right? You get hit. You're not thinking, God damn it, that guy hit me hard, I'm going to hit him back, all right? You're not scared. You're not turtling up, and hiding when somebody's throwing punches at you. You're not bloodlusting, you're not trying to pummel the guy. You want it balanced in the fact that you're nice and relaxed through the sparring session, or altercation on the street for that matter. You're balanced, and that you're thinking, you're able to think, you're able to pull things off. You're not overly bought into it emotionally, so that you're not thinking fear, you're not thinking anger, you're not thinking. That's balance.
Right. When you talk about balancing emotion, when I first started teaching, we would do sparring every Friday night. And I found me, as the quote unquote teacher, was handpicking who I was going to spar with, because quite frankly, some of the guys scared me. Right. So that was the truth, I'm not going to lie. There was one guy who trained with me. I'm still friends with him to this day. This is 20 years ago. Dave Polk was one of my first students, just a big, lovable guy, but he was, 6'3", 260, like he's going to hurt you, and he would hurt, So we would spar, and and I knew, like, there was times where I would get hit, because listen, when you spar, everybody gets hit, right? And I would say, wow, that hurt. So I found myself avoiding sparring Dave. And I realized it. And of course I kind of talked to myself, well, that's fine, that's self-preservation. Or like, oh, I'm not really afraid of getting hit, but it's like I lied to myself,
Right. Validating it, sure.
Right. And so and then at some point I said, no, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna put everybody's name in a hat, and we're gonna pull. It was actually a Tupperware bowl, right? And I just pulled two names out, and that's who spars, because I had to take my own emotions out of the equation as to all this who I'm going to spar.
Right.
And I think that's part of, like, what you were saying, like, this idea of controlling the e-balance. That's a great term for it. There's emotional balance, or it could even be your ego. For me, it was ego.
Yeah. Well, that's a rough thing as an instructor. I honestly don't spar a lot with my students now. Occasionally I jump in there just to show them who's boss. Right.
This was a long time ago. I was younger then.
Well, exactly. I'm older, and right. My son beats me up. That's right, yeah. That's enough.
Right, exactly.
But no, you're right. I mean, that's an important thing, and when you're sparring, a lot of times, those guys are the guys you can learn something from, and right. You can prevent yourself from learning. And I mean, it kind of reminds me of a time that, back in, I don't know, probably 1994, 93, 94, something like that. I used to do this thing in my school where when I had my school, and I figured, this is the time I'm going to learn the best, is because I don't do anything else. All I do is teach martial arts.
Right.
And so I used that time. I had the studio. So Monday mornings and then Friday evenings, I would have people come and spar with me. Usually Friday evenings would be somebody that I knew well, like a student or a friend or whatever, and they come over and we'd do 10, 12 rounds or whatever, and we call it a night. And then Monday mornings I would invite people of different styles of martial arts. And so, I had a Thai boxer in there, I had a Savat guy one time, I had a guy that was going pro, a boxer that was going pro. And there was a moment when I was sparring that boxer, and I sparred him the first time, and he just rocked me.
Right.
And when he did that, I sat there and oscillated between, should I invite that guy back? That guy was mean. He was hitting too hard.
Right.
You know, he doesn't know how to control himself. So again, like you were saying, I was making excuses why I don't think I want that guy back. And then he came back on his own.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I did it again, sparred with him again. And after, you know, and then he rocked me again. And then after 3 or 4 times, I started figuring him out. And I was hitting him back. And then it just felt good. And I realized, holy shit, I could have lost a great learning opportunity.
Right,
and
exactly right.
And because he came back, I didn't. So, yeah, I mean, that ties right in what I'm talking about. Perfect.
Yeah, you know, when we can learn to control our own egos, our egos can teach us a lesson. You know, if we can, I mean, I know obviously you know this, but you know, for anybody listening, you know, like if you can see what your ego is trying to get you to stop doing, it may be a good indicator of you, like what you need to work on. You
Right.
know, like for the longest time, like not everybody has to do all aspects of fighting. I get that. You know, someone can be great at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and what they do is amazing. And someone could be a great stand-up fighter and what they can do is amazing. You know, for me, I had an inherent, I don't want to say fear, but I had an aversion to ground fighting. And which is crazy is I wrestled all through school. But, you know, I, for some reason, didn't want to go to the ground, you know. And then I had a student join the school one day, and he said, "You doing any ground fighting?" And I said, "No, we're basically a stand-up school." And he said, "Oh, that's fine." And he said to me, "Do you know anybody that's got a wrestling background? Because I'd like to get some wrestling in." And I said, "Oh, I have some wrestling background, but I'd rather stay away from it." And he's like, "Okay." And I remember that night, it like gnawing at me. Like, why did I do that? Why did I do that? I know how to wrestle. I'm not going to get hurt wrestling. Why did I let my ego? And then I realized what it was. This guy was 10 years younger than me, was fresh out of college, and I knew he was going to own me on the mat. And I didn't want to get owned on the mat by my quote unquote student.
Right, right.
So so the next time he came in, I made it a point of saying like, "Oh, listen, let's wrestle a little bit, just as part of our warm up," and you know, and he did own me, but it really helped me grow as a person and realize that, you know, I was letting my ego stop me from exploring the grappling arts, you know.
Right.
And again, it's not for everybody, but I knew it was for me. But for some reason, there was this fear of not being good that stopped me, you know.
It's huge. It's huge in the martial arts. And to be honest with you, I think a lot of martial artists, that's one of the reasons, you know, and Bruce Lee talked about that too, is, you know, so many of the Kung Fu stylists from China that were, you know, showing off their prowess and that kind of stuff. All you had to do is just punch them in the nose and they didn't know what to do about it because they were just building this facade. And this facade was built on doing exactly what you're talking about, avoiding real confrontations, avoiding real situations, and coming up with staged parlor tricks. Parlor tricks. I mean, so much of Kung Fu is parlor tricks.
I agree. There's a lot of that's a great word. Parlor tricks involved in the martial arts. You know, one of the best people I've ever ran into who had the healthiest attitude about that was Matt Thornton from Straight Blast Gyms. I don't know if you know who he is.
No, I don't. I know who he is. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I ran a training group under Matt Thornton for a little while, in an MMA training group under Matt Thornton, Straight Blast Gyms. And I really thought he had the healthiest attitude when it came to an egoless martial arts system. I learned a lot about that from him. And I got to get him on this podcast too. It was, you know, it really is important, that this whole idea of ego. But I loved your word for it, that e-balance, that emotional balance, because that it just, I guess ego is just one aspect of that. And that's a brilliant term for it. I'm really glad you said that.
Yeah, and it's huge. I mean, it is. It's huge. Balance is, you know, the emotional balance side of it, and the other two portions of balance are gigantic. You know, and when I'm teaching classes, I can't. We're going back to balance again, but I can't stop. Every time I'm teaching a class, I always talk about it. I almost always talk about that. There's always some kind of reference to balance in one way or another. You know, there's something that is kind of my secret to Jeet Kune Do, martial arts, period.
Uh-huh.
Is and Ted Wong talked about this when I was learning from him, and that there are three things you always want to look at in a martial artist. And I found that it's not just in a martial artist, but there's three things you want to look at in an athlete, period. And whether it's a basketball player, a football player, martial artist, or whatever, and that's B, P, and R, and that's balance, precision, and recovery. And those three things, you know, so you balance, we just covered that somewhat. Precision, you know, a lot of people think about, you know, being precise in that, you know, you're going to hit this little teeny dot right here with your fist or whatever, being, you know, all your punches are precise. That's focus, or that's targeting. That's not really, that's part of precision, but that's a very small portion of it.
Right.
Precision is your movements are done in a way, exactly the way you intend on doing them.
I like that.
All right. So it's straight, on the button. There's no variance in the punch. This move, the timing is correct. So the hand moves first, you push off from the back foot, you turn the hips, et cetera, et cetera. That's precision. Is everything moves the way it likes. And if you think about, you know, you know, a high quality watch, for instance, you know, not electronic, not like now, an old fashioned watch with gears and all that kind of stuff. Precision equipment, that's what they used, you know, words they used to advertise that kind of stuff, because really good ones, the gears were etched in a way that they fit together so perfectly. So they kept better time than anything else, because the gears were precisely lined up the way they should be. Right. And that's way with martial arts or basketball player, again, you know, any kind of sport, their movements are precise. I mean, it's done, calculated. It's calculated. The last part is recovery. So, you know, you've got balance to begin with. You've got precise movement. So as you're moving, you're hitting, it's precise. And then you've got recovery from it all, because when you're moving, you're throwing yourself off balance. When you're moving, you're changing from your original position. You've got to recover back to that position, or back to a perfectly balanced position to where you can hit again. And so it's a big circle. And those three things, and again, like I said, you can watch it in anything. And you look at, you know, I don't know, a really good whatever, sports, you know, wherever he happens to be. And you look at him and you go, that guy's really good. And you've never really pinpointed why he's really good. But if you look at it, he's got those three things.
I think this is wonderful. I think the more martial artists look outside of the martial arts and into other athletic endeavors, the more they'll learn about themselves and what their goals are within the martial arts. When I talk about, I use other athletic endeavors, other sports, for analogies of ideas of like broken rhythm and timing and distance control. With a lot of my students, especially guys that are really into sports, because they can click. Now, I don't know how much you follow sports, but like I'll talk about, like, I'm a big hockey fan.
Okay.
You know, and like something called a deke in hockey, where they kind of like fake to one side and come back on the other side, maybe with a backhand into the net kind of thing, right?
Right, like a PIA. Okay.
See, so this is what I mean. And I talk about how they have to really sell this deke to, you know, and break the rhythm. And it's broken rhythm because they're taking the goalie, and where the goalie was set, he's now got a bite on their sold fake movement so that they can capitalize upon that. And I say, okay, my student will instantly understand this, because he understands hockey. And I'll say, okay, now take this information and apply it to your fighting. And like I see light bulbs go off, you know, and I love that you do that with this, you know, sports analogies. I with football players, guys tell me if they're a fan of football or basketball, and I'll talk about. Oftentimes, I'll say, okay, how can you break rhythm just one way? I know this isn't like the ideal definition of it, but like if a guy tells me he's a fan of basketball, and I'll say, picture Jordan has the ball, and he's coming down the court. And he takes it and he plants his foot and he's about to throw, and the defender jumps up to block the shot, except Jordan stops. He takes that minute pause, and then while the defender's coming down, now Jordan jumps up and
shoots.
And he broke the rhythm of the relationship between those two men and froze a moment in time. And people can capitalize upon that. And again, this is something we as martial artists and as coaches have to kind of impart on our guys, and our guys, you know, impart on themselves. But I love that you're using sports analogies, because I really think, especially for, you know, a lot of people in America here, especially, we're so sports obsessed that it's you know, it's a great way.
Oh yeah, so it's easy for people to understand, you know. And then well, it's a good thing for martial artists to understand too that we're not alone. I mean, these are universal principles that we're talking about. So martial arts is not some magic that everyone's been led to believe you're going to learn martial arts and it's going to, you know, I don't know, pixie dust and I don't know whatever. It's not. They're universal principles. They're physical principles that we're dealing with. And I, you know, I mean, sports analogies I use frequently. Honestly, I'm not a huge sports fan. I watch boxing, and that's about it. I don't know why. Time, I guess. Music, though. I mean, I'm a drummer. Was a drummer for many years. I see you're a guitar player, right?
I'm a guitar player.
Yeah, I saw that on Facebook. But so music analogies. You know, you talk about rhythm.
Oh yeah.
You know, you talk about rhythm, you talk about breaking rhythm. I mean, sometimes in class, and my assistant instructor, Dan, sometimes he'll bring a metronome in, and we'll talk about breaking rhythm, and we'll actually use a metronome so you can feel that, you know, breaking of the rhythm. So yeah, analogies, they're all over the place.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. There's a quarterback, or retired quarterback, named Steve Young. This is how the connection was made for me. Because I'm not going to lie and said that I came to this independently. I heard it, and like bells went off in my head. And one day I was listening to Steve Young, who I always enjoyed listening to him speak, because he always came across as so intelligent and well-spoken, and obviously was a man who was a master craftsman at being a quarterback. Well, one day I'm listening to him being interviewed, and the interviewer says to him, like, "Oh, you know, Steve, you seem so smooth in your movements." And a lot of quarterbacks, you know, they're choppy, especially the younger levels, and they get smoother as they come along. What makes you get better? And I think what the interviewer was looking for, I think they were actually going for a joke about getting tackled makes you better, kind of thing. And Steve Young started saying, you know, when you come up, when the ball is hiked to you and you come up, you're kind of like in this perfectly balanced stance, and you look around and you can see what's going on and anticipate the movements. He goes, and then he says, I use small steps and kind of tilt my upper body to create movement, so that I'll take my body out of balance and take a small step, and then I can recover and throw the ball. And I said, holy shit, he's talking about JKD Footwork. Like, it's the idea of, like, he's in his stance, and he's going to take his upper body and take himself just out of balance, and then take a step, almost as recovery, and throw the ball as his body is going into recovery mode, so that he had full power of, like, throwing the ball before the foot landed. And I'm saying, wow, like, that's almost like he was describing a lead punch like breaking down a lead punch, you know?
Right, right. Well, yeah, again, universal.
Right. And I, you know, I remember calling my teacher up, and Steve Golden is not a sports fan at all, but I remember like explaining to him what I was hearing on the radio. And he said, well, Sean, his answer was, well, Sean, there's a reason they call it a truth. There's truths in martial arts, but it's really truths in athletic endeavors. You know, this is a universal truth. It's if something is a truth in movement, well, then it's a truth or a principle in your martial arts movement, in a hockey player, in a football player, in a boxer. You know, a truth in movement is just, it's a truth, you know. There's a reason they call it that, you know.
Right, right. And in order to use those truths, you know, an upper echelon athlete, no matter what they are, whether they're a boxer or a football player or whatever, they get more efficient at using those truths.
Right.
And,
exactly right.
You know, they recognize them or they're taught them, and then they get more efficient. They feel them. They become, you know, it becomes part of them.
Right. You know, when they talk about how, you know, they take a two-step drop and turn to throw, you know, that's been drilled, I guess, 1,000 times. But it's what people I think don't realize is that it's not just taking 2 steps back and throwing the ball, that these guys are manipulating the balance of their bodies, and they're recovering, they're throwing at the correct time, that they have some sort of self-coordination and self-timing, in addition to the timing of the receiver and the ball release and all that other stuff that goes on in their sport-specific aspects of their truth. That there's this idea of like being self-coordinated and their movements is the same for us, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Recently, and I say recently, but it could have been months ago because I'm a little, you know, I got punched in the head a lot as a kid, right? So I saw on one of your videos, and I promise this is related, I'm not going off topic. You're talking about shadow boxing. And I really enjoyed the video for a lot of reasons. One of which was, I think it's one of the few times I've seen shadow boxing shown for its importance of something other than just being a warm-up before class. Most guys talk about shadow boxing, and it's like, oh, shadow box for 5 minutes and we'll start class. Warm up with shadow boxing and we'll start. And there's absolutely no coaching involved. And you were coaching shadow boxing. And I loved it. I was like, wow, see, this dude is like, I got to talk to this guy. Because so much goes on in shadow boxing where this idea of manipulation of balance and body sway. You know, there's so much in body sway. This idea of, you know, I mean, I don't have to tell you, but you know, this idea of just like a bob and weave and taking that sway and using that inertia and balance, movement and balance with your footwork. That's all trained right through shadow boxing.
Shadow boxing. Yeah, you can't, you know, and I've lectured many people, and, you know, some of the, you know, seminars that I've taught and different places I've gone to different places where I go to a group and I'm teaching this group, and they say, well, we don't like shadow boxing. And I didn't understand that. And I try to really explain the importance of shadow boxing. And I think there are a lot of people out there who don't like shadow boxing. I remember when I first started shadow boxing, when I you know, I saw the idea, okay, shadow box. And like you were saying, most people do it at, you know, 5-minute warm up or whatever, and that's it. And it feels awkward as hell to begin with.
Right.
You feel like either you look stupid, all right, or you're doing the same thing over and over again. You're not doing anything new. It's not really getting anywhere. And you're thinking, can't we just hit the mitts? Can't we just punch each other? Can't we hit the bag? You know, but I realized over the years, and part of that is from watching boxers, is that it's important. It is crucially important, because you've got to, you know, if you're really serious about being a martial artist, if you're really serious about getting good at it, you've got to spend a lot of time by yourself. And a lot of people do this thing where they just go to class and they think, you know, the only way I'm going to get good, I got to train with a partner. And I've had a lot of people over the years tell me, you know, I haven't been training at all. I don't have a partner to train with. Well, geez,
Right.
Yeah, you do. It's you. You know, train with yourself.
Right.
And anyways, I always talk about with people that 80% of your training should be solo training. 20% of your training is with a partner.
Right. That's
And because 80% of you, if you think about it, 80% of your training, you got physical training, you got push-ups to do, you got strength training type stuff, you got push-ups, you got pull-ups, you got dips, you got all that kind of stuff. You've got sprints, you've got endurance type stuff, you've got anaerobic endurance, you got aerobic endurance, you got jump rope skills to work on to make you lighter on your feet. There's so much to do that you don't need a partner for, and so many things that you can do that help you. And shadow boxing does so much for you. I mean, it makes you faster, makes you more precise, checks your balance, teaches you how to miss.
right.
And that's huge.
Right. That's huge. That's a great skill. You need to have that skill, right? Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah, because if you're sparring, how many times are you hitting a guy?
Right.
You're hitting a guy 1 out of 20, if that. You're lucky if you're hitting a guy 1 out of 20. So most of the time you're missing. And when you're missing, you've got all that extended energy that you got to catch and bring back.
The recovery, right?
The recovery. So you got to recover back from that. And shadow boxing teaches you that. Obviously there's ways you can cheat. I've seen a lot of guys cheat by shadow boxing. They step and stop, and then they throw all these punches, not moving their feet, and they're just, just standing, and they look extremely fast and awesome. And then they move their feet again, and then they, that's cheating, because that's not realistically how you're going to throw punches or kicks. You're going to move. Right. So you got to teach yourself how to move. And shadow boxing, you brought up bobbing and weaving. You're bobbing and weaving, somebody throwing a punch at you, you're trying to get underneath a punch and then come back and hit afterwards. You got to practice that motion over and over and over again for it to come out on its own. And to have a partner there, the times that you're going to have a partner with you all the time. The amount of times that you need to really do that in order to where it just comes out on its own are thousands and thousands and thousands of times. And you don't have a partner with you sufficiently enough to make that happen. So you got to do it on your own. Plus, on your own, the ego goes away.
Right. Excellent point.
You're not sitting in front of somebody and they're holding the mitts for you and you're going, yeah, slam, slam. Let me show this guy how hard I can hit. When you're shadow boxing, you're home alone. Maybe you're standing in front of the mirror, which is a good tool. But you're home alone, and you screw up and you're not trying to make yourself look good to impress somebody else.
Right, sure.
You're trying to make yourself good, period, not look good. And there's a big difference. And shadow boxing, is huge.
Yeah, I kind of feel like, for me, when the realization came on the importance of shadow boxing, it was like just for me, it was the recovery out of bob and weaves, where I said, I need to do this more often, because my feet were too narrow on a bob and weave, and I wasn't recovering that sway. I'm a big guy, and when I sway, I have inertia, I have movement, and I have energy. So I needed to really work on the recovery of that movement, and so I started literally just after class kind of thing, coming home and just working on bob and weave drills, and then bob and weave, making sure I had proper footwork and staying in balance and manipulating balance. And then it was, movement, and then saying, okay, I'm going to move and I'm going to hit. And then it was, I'm going to hit and then move. And then I'm going to hit, move, hit. And then I want to hit, move, change the angle, hit. I want to hit, move, change the angle, change the tool. So I want to be able to hit with a lead, bob, weave, go to my right with proper footwork, stay balanced, recover, throw a lead, and then come with a lead kick or a rear kick to change the tool, and then recover out of that and change the angle and deal with all those changes in balance and changing. I use the term body sway. I don't know if that's the right term, but
I've heard that term used, which is a good term. Yeah.
The dealing with our own balance and body sway. I honestly, I don't know of a better drill than shadow boxing. Because when you're sparring in a 2-man drill, you're too worried about hitting and getting and not getting hit.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If your only goal is to hit the other guy and to not get hit, so much is lost in translation. We need safe time. We need time that we can train and make mistakes without getting hit. Not even worrying about, not even so much ego of getting hit. Just I don't want to get knocked out. I want to be able to train these ankle changes.
Right.
Without getting hurt, you know?
Yeah, it gives you time to focus. Yes.
It's exactly right.
Yeah.
And shadow boxing for me is something of like just super amount. The importance of it is just, you know, ridiculous.
Yeah, it's irreplaceable. You can't. Yeah, you've got to have it. It's got to be part of your routine. And you know, the more I've done it over the years, you know, I'm not a young guy, and there are lots of things that over the years, I'm still getting better, and it's from shadow boxing. And there are some things I'm not better at anymore. I mean, there are certain things that I'm losing as I get older, but shadow boxing keeps me sharper, and some things I'm faster than I used to be. Some things I'm not quite as fast as I used to be, but shadow boxing keeps me, you know, keeps me on my edge, you know, keeps my edge going, keeps me sharp. You know, part of that class, you know, that class used snippets of the videos. You know, I just talked about how shadow boxing should be approached, and the way shadow boxing should be approached. You know, we're all about, a lot of times, a lot of martial artists, Jeet Kune Do people especially, are all against prearranged. Okay, we don't want to do prearranged because Bruce Lee talked about, you know, no prearranged forms, no, you know, all that kind of stuff. There are prearrangement. Sometimes you got to do prearranged. You were just talking about that a little bit. So you got a shadow box. You got okay, I want to work on coming in with a straight lead and then across and then bob and weave and then throwing a rear hand, whatever. Okay, I want to work on just that combo. So shadow box it, prearrange it. I'm going to do that over and over. I remember years ago, there was a time where I was working on one combination, and it was a straight lead, cross, uppercut, and then an overhand from the left, right?
Right.
And I just did that combo. It felt cool, you know,
Sure.
And I kept doing it, and I shadow boxed it like crazy. And then I put it on the double end bag, and I was doing it on a double end bag. And then, I don't know, 6 weeks later, 8 weeks later, whatever it was, I jumped in and I started sparring with some guy. And guess what? Boom, it came out. Nice. It just, and I hit him hard with it too. It was like, yes. So there's realizations of that. But shadow boxing is what made that happen.
Right.
So prearranged patterns, you should have some of those. There should be certain things that you're working on specifically. All right, I'm going to work on, like, you know, angling. So I'm going to do just footwork, and I'm just going to work on angling, only footwork. Or I can work on just head movement. I'm going to move, and I'm just going to work head movement. All right. Or I'm going to imagine I'm just defending. That's all I'm doing, defending. So I'm going to cover, I'm going to parry, I'm going to slip, I'm going to slip this way. And you're just going to defend. So that's another type of shadow boxing you can do. I can work on, you know, I'm an inside fighter, and that was one of the things on the videos I think I did. You know, I'm going to get in close, and I'm going to be Tyson.
Right.
You know, I'm going to hit. Okay. Or I'm going to be a sharpshooter. I'm going to, you know, stick a guy from a long ways away. So I'm going to work on that tactic and keep him at bay, keep him out. Or I can just free flow. I'm just fighting. All right. And it's just going, and that's kind of the ultimate goal of shadow boxing, is you want it to just become free form. So where when you shadow box, you're not thinking, what am I doing? And you're not thinking, I'm going to throw this, and then I'm going to throw that, or I'm going to throw that kick, or I'm going to move here. It just happens.
Right.
All right. And that teaches you a lot about when you're sparring. That's where you want it to be too. In sparring, it's that same goal. You want it to be where it just happens. And Bruce Lee talked about it hits all by itself. That's that moment. And in shadow boxing, that's the equivalent.
Right. It teaches the body, it coaches the body through the proper execution of movement to hit.
Right. And you go back, you know, I mean, and so shadow boxing can be a lot of different things, you know. It just doesn't have to be just this awkward, you know, I'm pretending I'm fighting some guy. All right.
Right.
You're working on specifics, you're working on strategies, you're working on, you know, whatever you need to work on, you shadow box it and do a lot of it. So
yeah, that's wonderful. I wanted to ask if you could talk about broken rhythm a little bit. I think it's one of the most misunderstood ideas when it comes to fighting in athletic endeavors in general, especially from what I've encountered with some JKD people. Um, this idea of broken rhythm has taken on a new definition from what I've seen. This idea of of breaking up tools as opposed to rhythm. And I've seen what you do, and what you do is broken rhythm. And like, I've seen this, like the people like count out, like, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they'd say they're breaking rhythm by going like jab, jab, hook, cross, into like jab, fake, cross, hook, fake, fake, cross, hook. No, you're changing tools, but it's still in the same rhythm.
It's doing the same rhythm, yeah.
It's like you're just cementing the rhythm. If you wouldn't mind speaking about broken rhythm a little bit, I would really appreciate it.
Yeah. So broken rhythm, I mean, it's, is a pretty simple concept. It's really easy to explain just simply. In the martial arts aspect, there's a lot of different ways to apply it. But, you've got a rhythm. You got 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a steady rhythm. You got a beat. In between, and as a drummer, you go 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. So those in betweens, all right. So I got a beat here. That's 1. That's 2. There's a 1 and 2. So 1 and 2. There's the broken rhythm, is where the and is. And in music, it's syncopation.
Right.
All right. So you can take, that martial arts aspect of it, you can take it. I've got the beat going like this. So I'm throwing a combination and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can make it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay.
Right.
1, 2, 3. Okay. And you break it up. So you change the time in between each strikes from one to another. You can't have broken rhythm with one strike. I saw a guy explaining broken rhythm and all he was doing was one strike, and it didn't really make any sense to me. What are you breaking?
Right, exactly right.
So broken rhythm can be, I mean, it's huge too. There's a lot of things in the subject, but that's a real basic one. Just starting off teaching a basic class and giving them an idea of broken rhythm. You take just a jab, cross, and a hook, right? And teach them, okay, we're going to do this in rhythm. I want you to keep it nice in rhythm. Ba, 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 ba. All right, now we're going to break the rhythm. We're going to make it ba, 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 ba. All right, so we just broke the rhythm. Now we're going to make it a little bit different. Now we're going to go ba, 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 ba,
right.
ba, ba. Okay, and so that's real basic explanation of broken rhythm. There's rhythm. Rhythm can also be you, or it can be your opponent. So you can break your rhythm, you can break their rhythm. And that's another important aspect that a lot of people explore. And usually when you're talking about the other person, it's more a reference to cadence, the cadence of the thing. But their rhythm is set, they're boom, 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 hit them in between, and you're breaking their rhythm. Broken rhythm, fakes, feints, that kind of stuff have a lot to do with broken rhythm, or a good way to play off a broken rhythm. A feint, like you were talking about in hockey, you got to sell a feint, you got to sell a fake. And in order to do that, you got to have syncopation. All right. You got to throw it, make it real, give them a moment to realize that it happened. They've got to recognize it. If you throw, and a lot of people do that in rhythm, they throw a fake and then a cross and then a hook. That fake and they just tied it all together.
Sure.
Mentally,
right.
They just tied it all together and they blocked everything. All right. But if you fake it and give them just a split second to block it, to react to it, boom, boom, then this stuff comes behind it. Then your broken rhythm happens.
Right. It's, one of the phrases I like to use is, to me, like really good broken rhythm is the capitalization of your opponent's reactions.
Yes.
If you can get your opponent, and like Steve taught me broken rhythm mostly with footwork. This idea of using footwork to break the other person's rhythmic footwork and getting them off balance, or getting them to stand on the head of a pin, or getting them to make their stance too wide so they can't move properly during your attack. and this idea of breaking rhythm with footwork. I know Ted Wan folks are going to have wonderful footwork, and they like steel step, and we have different terminology for our steps, but I think it's kind of almost all the same. Would you mind talking a little bit about like broken rhythm with footwork in relation to the hands? Like, because like I know, like say, like 1, 2, 3, but which is light years above what a lot of guys are doing, and like within that little pause, like great amount of footwork, swaying happens, changing of angles during that little pause to get people to do stuff for you to capitalize on their movement or their reaction to your movement. So I want to know if you can talk a little bit about like broken rhythm in regards to footwork, if you don't mind.
Sure, and that's huge. There's so many different things with footwork. And I don't know if you saw the video I did not too long ago where, well, I think last week, was it last week? Maybe the week before, where I was talking about that all your movement should not, try to keep it as unrhythmic as possible unless it's intentionally rhythmic. And during that, I was demonstrating, choppiness of footwork, choppiness of smooth footwork. And it's something that, with footwork, you've got a lot of different ways you can do it, so the broken rhythm is, if you're moving, you're stepping, you can step in rhythm and that kind of stuff. To break it, you can do directional changes, and there's 2 different ways to do directional changes. One is you really take that other direction. 2 is you don't take that other direction. All right. So directional changes being, for instance, I move to my right and I pause for just a second and then attack from my left.
Yeah,
all right.
Love that.
So that's a footwork change. So I'm stepping completely to my right, making my opponent react to me going right, and I hit him to my left as he does that. The other way to do it is I move my foot to the right, but I move my body to the left.
Right.
So I move my foot to the right, push, and it brings me around to the same attack. But what ends up happening, he sees me go this way, so he runs into, so it's an interception. So I led him into that opportunity. That's a broken rhythm attack right there, totally, because you're moving in rhythm and and you go.
That's awesome, folks. For people that are listening to this podcast right now, like rewind that 7 or 8 times. Listen to what Mike just said, because what he's talking about here, and forgive me for jumping in on what you're saying, Mike, like that's worth the price of admission right there, folks. I'm telling you right now, like that's gold. What he's talking about right now is gold in the martial arts. This idea of manipulation. I'm sorry, continue. I just want people to realize that like this is where it's at when it comes to broken rhythm, and what you're describing to me is what people should be striving for.
And it's the fun.
Right.
That kind of stuff. I mean, we talked about parlor tricks. Those are my parlor tricks.
Right, exactly.
Okay. But they really work. It's not something that you just show off on, on TV or whatever. It really works. And the cool thing about this, I can sit there and talk about it. When I talk about it, a lot of people are getting what I'm saying. A lot of people aren't.
They aren't.
And I like to teach, so there's no secrets. And it's something in the martial arts that a lot of people have a lot of secrets. What I've realized over the years, you don't need secrets. And Ted Wong said that too. He says, I'll teach anybody anyway, anything, and there's no secrets. I'm not holding anything back, because they're not going to practice it anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Right.
And there's truth to that. There's truth to that.
In one of my earlier podcasts, the first or second one, I'm not sure which one, I talked about how my thought process going into this podcast was to rise the tide of the guys training in the martial arts, Jeet Kune Do especially, that because the better we all get kind of forces all of us to get better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if everybody we train with gets better, then it forces us to get better just to keep up.
Totally. Well, and that's something as an instructor I've seen over the years, is that the better my students get, I got to keep on top of it, because I can't have them, have them owning me, and then that would suck. That would suck. Real quick, so back to broken rhythm too. I mean, I talked to lateral movements. I mean, you also do a draw or a pull, And that can be a broken rhythm too. You know, you can step in, you know, something real rhythmic, you step in, draw, boom, hit. So you draw somebody back, and that can be you do that with footwork. I mean, you can also do it with a body sway where you lean back and then hit. You can do it with footwork too. You push back off that front foot and then launch back over off the back foot in a broken rhythm. You mentioned steal a step. I mean, that's one of the ones that a lot of people recognize as broken rhythm, because it can be broken rhythm, although you can do it on rhythm too.
Right.
And stealing a step is, you know, for those who don't know what stealing a step is stepping normally a push step, but then drawing like a slide step, that back foot in, and then pushing off of it in between. And usually, ideally, you want to do it in broken rhythm. You want to do it so you step, boom, boom. So it's a 1.5 to get in there. Other examples, broken rhythm. I mean, you're throwing a kick, you know, classic low high. How many people you've seen do that over the years? You know, fake a low kick and hit high. That's broken rhythm right there, totally. All right. Another way to do it is go high low. You know, so those are basic broken rhythm type things. But with footwork, there's tons. There's tons.
Right, sure. And I don't expect you to give a broken rhythm clinic here. I appreciate everything you've. And there was one more thing I want to ask you about. We talk about and we teach the three forces, right? Linear. I want to know if you wouldn't mind speaking about that just for a couple of minutes, just giving the folks what the three are, and what the three are, what importance they lie, and like how they could use that information to train. Like if you can just talk about that for a few minutes, I would really appreciate that.
Sure. Okay. So, I mean, see, three types of forces that you've got involved in any kind of a strike. More prevalently or easier to see are in punches than in kicks, but they're still there with kicks. You've got linear force, you've got circular, okay, or centrifugal force, and you've got gravitational force. Those three types of forces are always in action, and no matter whatever kind of attack you're throwing. Linear force is, you know, following a straight line. That requires you to push yourself and create momentum and hitting the target. So it involves an explosion of some sort. And I'll get to an analogy in a minute about a gun. But it involves an explosion to launch your body forward, to get that body in motion and hitting straight on. So that linear force, you're crashing into something this way. You've got centrifugal force, and centrifugal, is rotation, okay? Rotational force, spinning, all right? And I never know the difference between centrifugal and centripetal. Do you know the difference?
I couldn't tell you. No.
Okay, there's a difference. But anyways, they're both very similar. So this type of force, so you're turning like this. So obviously, you know, you got a straight punch, whether it's a jab or a cross or, you know, straight lead or whatever it happens to be. If it's a straight punch, it doesn't have a lot of centrifugal force. It doesn't have a lot of rotational force. It's mostly linear, okay? There is some, though. I mean, if you think about it, yeah, it's smaller. So when you're coming out, you know, your hands may be down low like a Jeet Kune Do guy, and it's coming up. This is a circle that's happening here. So you got a little bit of that going on, even though it's primarily linear. But the hip rotation, all right? So the hip rotation, you got circular force, okay, centrifugal force, pushing your fist through the target, all right? You got gravitational force also, and the gravitational force comes in, you know, Jack Dempsey talks about a drop step. Jeet Kune Do, as far as I'm concerned, almost every single one of our punches has a drop step in it.
Right.
All right. And you're pushing, you're picking up the front foot, pushing with the back foot, and as you're falling into position, you're hitting. All right. So you're using gravitational force to hit with. Now to my analogy, and this is a Ted Wong analogy, and it's a very good analogy, and I use it all the time. So if you think about it, you know, during any kind of a punch, and we'll talk about, you know, a straight lead or a jab first, is that you need points of acceleration all throughout the motion to make it drive through, to make it hit true, to make it precise, to make it hurt. And if you picture a rifle, for instance, right? Or a pistol even, whatever. A rifle, it's got one point of acceleration. You pull that trigger, there it is. That bullet explodes. As soon as it leaves the barrel of the gun, it starts to fall.
Right.
And the reason it starts to fall is because it's losing energy the further it goes away from that initial point of acceleration. With our punches, with our kicks, we want to find those other points of acceleration to keep our punch traveling and collecting momentum, which ultimately collects power. So when we push off for a punch, that's one point of acceleration. You turn the hips, that's another point of acceleration. You turn the shoulders, can be another point of acceleration. All right, you're dropping into it using gravity, that's another point of acceleration, et cetera, et cetera. You find those points of acceleration and you really concentrate on them, and you think about it, you train them, you try to time them right. You get the synchronization in those motions, so those points of acceleration are actually, you feel like you're boom, 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 boom. You're pushing that punch forward.
Right.
You'll notice a difference in your punches.
Right, right. And when you were talking about the drop step, to me, that brings me right back to body sway. You know, this idea of like, you know, I'm sorry I keep on going back to it, but to me, so much of what I do is built on proper synchronization of body sway and footwork and use of body weight.
As it should be.
Right, within movement and striking, you know,
Right.
and so when you talk about, you know, this idea of the body weight involved in striking, I'm so highly invested in that, and this idea of, you know, body weight within footwork, body weight usage in striking and kicking and in everything, you know, and I'm so glad you talked about that. I really appreciate that.
It's good stuff. And I mean, there's one more analogy that I use frequently. And I feel that a fighter should be very much like a race car. And in that race car, you know, you're right on the edge. You're just going around the corner. You're in a slide. You're just almost out of control, but you're in control. So a race car driver's got it. He's going around that. He's doing that slide. He's got it going in, but he's still got it. He's still got it, and he can pull it out at any point. And that's what you want to be. Whether it's punches coming at your face, you're right on the edge of that punch. It's just barely skinning your cheek. Right. You know, your footwork, you're using that balance so that you're almost out of balance, but you're ready to pull it off when you need to. So you're using that being off balance to your advantage.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Dude, this has been amazing. I really appreciate that you did this for me tonight and did this for
you
the
bet.
folks.
Thanks.
So
Thanks for inviting me.
How can people find you if they want to contact you?
Well, Facebook, I'm on Facebook, JKD Colorado. I've also got an Instagram page, so either place you can follow me there. My webpage is jkdcolorado.com, so that's pretty easy to find as well. You can email me from there, and usually I'll talk to just about anybody, so don't be shy. And
Excellent. And I guess when this crazy COVID stuff is over, people can maybe talk to you about seminars and things to that effect.
Yeah, and I've got some on hold. Unfortunately, they have been on hold, and hopefully that'll let up soon.
Well, folks, this has been brilliant. I love this, Mike. Thank you so much for coming on the show tonight.
You bet.
I really appreciate it. I really hope you'll come back again because this was good stuff, and I really enjoyed it. And I know anybody with a brain listening to this is going to really enjoy this. So,
all right, anytime.
I thank you very much.
All right, you bet, Sean.
All right, be good, folks, and I'll catch you next week.